Okay, let's keep going. Let's do our Niguns. What do you say? Let's switch over to 3/4 time for a minute. Okay, so just as a reminder of 3/4 time and what that. Well, first of all, who understands what that means? 3/4. Does that? Who has a sense of what that means? Who's totally lost on what that means? Who's somewhere in the middle? Where are we at on understanding that? So we'll explain it real quick. So when we give a music signature, we have two numbers, often written like a fraction, something over something, right? 4/4 time, 3/4 time. 3/4 time looks like a 75%, right? Like 3/4. But actually, each of them are independent of each other. The first number is how many beats per measure. That means what's the number you should be counting to and repeating in your head, right? So in 3/4 time, we're counting to 3. In 4/4 time, we're counting to 4. In 5/4 time, we're counting to 5. That's a relatively uncommon time signature, but it does happen. There's that song "Take 5" that's been kind of a hit if people know it. But the most common time signatures we'll see are 3/4 and 4/4. The bottom note is less relevant to us who are reading sort of chords and tabs, but if you're reading written music, notated music, it's much more important because it lets you know what type of note counts as the main unit that you're counting. So 4 means that you're talking about quarter notes. So 3/4 time means that there are 3 beats per measure and that each beat is represented by 1 quarter note. 3/8 time would be 3 beats per measure and each beat would be represented by an eighth note rather than a quarter note. Similarly, 3/2 time would be represented by half notes and so on and so forth. Okay, does that make sense? The second number is much less important to us for what we're doing than the first one. Any questions on that though? Yeah, Mom. You got to unmute.
What's the difference between a quarter note and an eighth note?
Yeah, let me get a pull up here. Okay.
Is it how fast you play it?
So not necessarily. I mean, yes, but not necessarily. Okay. Okay, you see this right here, right? So this is not, Mom, can you still see this? Are you still here? I keep losing your video. Okay, so these are music notations that you'd find like if you were playing piano or something like that, right? Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit that button. There we go. So if you were playing piano, playing violin, if you were reading music, even playing classical guitar where you were reading music, this is what notes would look like, right? So a whole note lasts for 4 beats generally, or it lasts for a whole measure. A half note lasts for 2 beats generally, or sometimes, there are exceptions. So I'm going to give you the sort of general rules and not worry about the exceptions. Quarter notes, you get 4 of them in a measure. So 4 quarter notes equals 1 whole note. So let's say that, again, this is not how we do music for ukulele, but if I wanted to hold a note for 4, right? If I wanted to play a whole note, right? So I would strum the chord for a whole note. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Each strum is a whole note. Now I'm going to strum half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that make sense? Each of these is a half note. We're still counting to 4, still lasting 4, right? But now we'll do quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? 16th notes. So does that make sense right there? So actually the bottom number when we're seeing in that time signature is which of these is the main unit. So in a 3/4 or a 4/4 time, we're saying that the quarter note is counting as the main unit. 4 quarters equal to full. Again, not terribly important for what we're doing, but still makes some sense. Any questions on that before we?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and try out our Nigun. So this is going to be in 3/4 time, right? That's what that thing is over there, telling us that it's 3/4 time. Nope, I guess that way it says 3/4 time. Yep, at the top. And so we know that there are going to be 3 beats per measure, not 4, meaning that in our head we should be counting to 3 over and over again and not 4. So let's get into that, just starting on a C. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Speed it up a little, actually. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Here we go. D minor, die, die, yay, die, die, C, yay, die, back to D minor, yay, die, die, C, 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 D minor, D minor, D minor, D minor, C, C, back to D minor. Okay, now we're gonna go on. Here comes the G minor, and each of them only gets 2 instead of 4. Yay, day, yay, day, day, C, yay, day, day, F, day, D minor, yay, day, G minor, go to C. Now go to F. Here comes D7, and D7, yay, day, day, G minor goes to C. Now go to F, back to D minor, now go to C, and D minor, speed it up from the top, yay, day, day, C, 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 D minor, D minor, D minor, day, 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 C, 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 now to D minor. Okay, here we go, let's go on. G minor's next. Yay, die, G minor goes to C, then to F and D minor. Now go to G minor, go to C. Now go to F. Here comes D7. D7. Now go G minor, goes to C, and F and D minor. Now go to C and D minor. Okay, how was that?
That was lovely.
Yeah, we were able to play it. It felt comfortable-ish?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's hard to remember it when you're not here to lead it, but it's beautiful.
I like this Nigun. I don't know what the name of it is or who wrote it. I call it the Jerusalem Nigun, and that has nothing to do with anything other than where I learned it, so I don't think that's helpful for anyone else. But I find it really hard to recall a Nigun in my head unless I have like something that I can hang my hat on. So even just calling it that helps me. Okay, this is certainly going to be one of the things we're going to do at Shabbat Kulanu in 2 weeks, so that will be wonderful. And
You have such applicability.
I love that Nigun. Yeah, a little bit of an earworm.
How Shabbat Kumanu? That's going to be at Temple, and is it inside or outside, or what's the plan?
At CRC, it'll be in the sanctuary in the round.
Great.
So if anyone was there way back when in January of 2020, I think that's when it was, we did it in the round in the Oneg. And so this is in the round instead in the sanctuary. We first of all want to just have more room for people, but also with COVID, we still want to, have a little bit of extra breathing room, I guess quite literally. And of course, masks and all those things as always.
Is everybody going in our group? Is everyone going? No, Sean, you can't come.
I moved back in with my parents last week, so I'm in Mississippi.
Oh, God, thank you for still signing on. That's great.
Okay, we gotta, Sean, we gotta connect one of these days. Let's find a time to Zoom and catch up, okay?
Daniel,
I plan to be there.
Good.
Good.
2 years ago, and it was memorable. I think of it regularly.
Ray, you're coming? You're coming?
Oh, indeed. Yeah.
Good. Yay.
It was sort of, we didn't know it at the time, but it was like the hurrah of CRC before the pandemic, right? Like it was all of the things we couldn't do for 2 years.
It was the last Shabbat in February of 2020, because it was like my second or third Shabbat.
Oh.
Crazy.
I sat next to.
Daniel, you should get your brother to go.
Oh, I should convince my brother to go. I should convince him to come and play, actually.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I sat next to Jill Hollifield, which was a joy. She's looking forward to it. I know.
She's got such a great voice, too, yeah. Okay, let me find... I'm going to pull out some of the other ones we'll probably do there right now. Let's see what we got that is in here. For next week, I will have all of the things we're doing for us to practice.
Great.
There's all the Passover songs. We probably don't need those right now. Okay, let's just do a few of these. Here we go. Okay, this is a really simple one. Very, very simple. Even if you haven't played it before, I think our crew should have no trouble with this because you probably know it. By the way, for those who don't know, this is originally a church song. It's Jesus Prepare Me that you'll find, or Lord Prepare Me. But it has interestingly spread throughout the Jewish world also. And I was in a really interesting shiur, a lecture in Jerusalem. This is years ago now, 5 years ago or so. And the person giving it was a Sephardi rabbi giving the siddur, giving the lecture. And she mentioned that Sephardi Jewish law has a particular rule that says that melodies cannot become treif. That music is not treifable. It doesn't matter if it's a song about Jesus or Islam or paganism or whatever it is, that the melodies themselves cannot become treif and may be used and borrowed in musical ideas and so on and so forth. Which I just thought was kind of an interesting idea and an interesting note.
I love that.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Wait, what does treif mean, though? Can you define that word?
Treif is the opposite of kosher.
Does that mean Amazing Grace? We can pull that in.
So right, like the Sephardi notion would be that the melody and the music can't become treif, even if the lyrics themselves can. Is kind of the notion. Again, we don't, as Reformed Jews, we don't need to feel ourselves bound by any of these things. But I thought that was an interesting classical view that I really appreciated. And actually, you find it all over. Does anyone have any familiarity with Shabbos table songs? That's the other thing we should do with this group. Even if it's not ukulele, we should do like a Shabbos lunch and learn all of these Shabbos table songs. There are these booklets called benchers that have the prayer after eating, Birkat Hamazon, but also will have, 50 different traditional Shabbos songs that you sing and all the sort of banging on the table, kind of singing in the round kind of stuff.
That would be so fun.
So let's organize that. That'd be a blast. But anyways, what I was gonna say with this notion is so many of those Shabbos table songs are actually European, Central and Western European drinking songs. Which when you listen to them, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I see this. Similarly, I believe that the core melody of Hatikva comes from a Czech, somewhat erotic romance song. My other fact that I love about Hatikva, by the way, I don't know if this is true, but I've been told it, and it's true in a Jim Goodman way, even if it's not true in a factual way, that Hatikva is the only national anthem written in a minor key, which feels just very right, like on brand for us as a people.
Well, Die Moldau has a tune that's very similar to Hatikva.
Right. Yep.
Smetna.
Yep.
Your comment makes me think also that the music kind of transcends so many differences, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I love the idea that the melody is not trivial.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hold on. I'll share one more thing that's totally unrelated, other than it sort of is related in my head. Alana Stein-Hain, one of the really amazing left-wing Orthodox feminist thinkers out there. I listened to a lecture of hers talking about ritual, and she pointed out that for Jews, ritual is where we all come together to do the same thing, even as it has entirely different meanings for every individual there. And I was so struck by that, because it's sort of the opposite of how I normally have thought of ritual, right? Like we all come together so that we can have this shared experience, moment, intention, certainly in a theological, particularly sort of in a Christological setting, that's the idea. But Jewishly, I loved this opposite frame, that we come together to do the same thing and to experience it entirely differently. So anyways, there's something musical about that too, I think. Okay, let's...
You just described CRC.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes, we're very traditional at CRC in that way. Okay, let's play this. Now that we had that long introduction to this. Oshan says that they first learned it at a Presbyterian summer camp as a kid. There you go. Yeah. Meanwhile, Camp Sabra, the Jewish camp, uses it also now. So it's, it really is everywhere. Okay, these are just our three first chords that we learned, C, F, and G. And we could play it with other chords, but, well, sorry, I keep saying that we're going to start playing, and now I'm going to go backwards again and talk more about other things. Every key has a different emotional resonance to it. I really believe it. That songs in the key of C, if you play them in the key of D or F or G or whatever else it is, emotionally feel different. And I think this is something that is somewhat unique to stringed instruments. I don't believe that it's the same, for instance, if you're transferring it over to a piano. I mean, it might change where the human voice is, and that changes it, right? But the thing about a stringed instrument is that the order of the notes in a chord are different depending on the different chord shapes, right? So this is a C chord. There we go. This is a C chord right here, right? So our top note in a C chord, just as a reminder, we have three notes, right? The 1, the 3, and the 5. So we have the C, not the D, the E, not the F, and the G. So a C chord is a C, E, G, right? And I actually hold it like this because on a piano you would play it like that, right? With these three fingers, just like that. C, E, and G. So that means that when we are playing a C chord, our goal is to turn each of these strings into a note that is either a C, an E, or a G. So this top note is a G, right? That's a G on our ukulele, assuming we've tuned our ukulele properly. And so the G is the 5th note in a C chord. Our next note is the C. We certainly want the C. That's our first note. And then we get an E. That's our 3rd note, right? So what we've got is 5, 1, 3 right here. And then our next note is an A, which is not in the chord, so we move it to a B flat, which is not in the chord, so we move it to a B, which is not in the chord, and we move it to a C, and the C is in the chord, right? So there we go. So what we've got is 5, 1, 3, 1. Does that make sense, what I just said? So that the bottom note is a 5 there. It's the 5th of the chord, the G, not the C, even though it's a C chord. Okay. Now, yeah,
I have a question.
Yeah, Linda, go ahead.
When you take that C and you capo up, all right, are you changing the mood of that song that you're talking about, or do you hold it? Do you see what my question is?
I don't think that changes the mood. Let me say the next piece, and that'll explain what I'm trying to say here, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our C chord right here, right? Now let's go ahead and play a G chord. So G chord is G, not an E, F sharp. You don't need to know why it's sharp, but it's sharp. G, no, sorry, I'm doing this backwards. G, a B, and a D. Ignore everything that I said about the F sharp. G, not an a B, not a C, and a D. G, E, D. So that means we need to turn each of these into a G for a G chord. So we're going to go ahead and play a G right here, right? And that makes our bottom note our 1. It's a G. And then we've got a 5, 1, 3 after that. So it's 1, 5, 1, 3. And what that means is it just gives a different feel when you've got the 1 as your bottom note. It gives it a different emotional resonance, right? So this is a G. This is also...
Wait. Now could you go back to the C for a second and say the 5, 3, 1 thing again? Just say the numbers.
Yeah, so C is 5, 1, 3, 1. And a G is going to be 1, 5, 1, 3. So don't get too lost on the particulars here. The real point that I want us to take away is that when you change the order of those notes that they're in a stringed instrument like this, it changes the emotional feel of the song itself. Who here is a piano player? Even a little bit of a piano player? Right, so you can play a C chord like this, C, E, G, right? But you can also back it up and play G, C, E, or you can back it up and play E, G, C, right? You can play it with any of those as your bass note, and it's still a C chord, but it's going to change how it emotionally feels. And that's what happens when we have guitar chords or ukulele chords on a stringed instrument, that they're going to be in a different order from each other, and it's going to change the emotional resonance. So there will be songs that sound great in C and just feel emotionally right, but you try to play the exact same song in the key of F, and it's just going to feel emotionally different. So let me give you an example.
Wow.
Let me play this for you.
I never knew this.
Let me play this for you in 2 different keys just to give you a sense of it. And remember, I'm not talking about literally how high or low it is here, right? Adonai, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. Okay. Now feel the emotionality of it. I'll go ahead and play it in G, I guess. Getting the chords in my head. Adonai, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Back to the C. Adonai, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy. Right, so even ignoring my voice, which clearly does better in the C than it does in the G, do we feel, just again emotionally, do we feel how they just feel different, those chords?
I think the C is maybe more yearning.
Yeah, there's a yearning. There's a C and F are the go-to keys for like folky music, sing-along music. If you go to a key of G, it's going to be a little poppier. If you go to the key of A, it's going to be a little bluesier. Sean says C is a little more somber. Yeah, exactly. You get just these emotional feels to it, independent of the notes themselves. And so when I say that C feels this way, right? If I'm playing a guitar, this is actually a G chord. This shape is a G chord. So a G chord on a guitar and a C chord on a ukulele have the same emotional feel because they're both the same setup of strings, if that makes sense. And it's the shape that we care about here, not the actual notes. I've probably totally confused us now. Is that fair to say? No? We actually kind of get it? Okay, so let's go ahead and try this out. Okay, here we go. One, two, three, four. One, two. Here we go. Why don't I prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and F, tried and C, and just go to a G. Ignore the 7. With thanks, G, oh, C, sorry, I'll be a G. Now to F, G7, and C. Okay. How'd that feel real quick? Okay. Let's keep going. Adonai, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy. When you come to those G's, try out the suspensions. Tried and true with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. One more time. Adonai, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Okay, one more note here as long as we're talking about this. A lot of times I think we can make the mistake of thinking that being able to strum fast and complicated is the same as sounding good. And they're not. And I hope one of the things that came through on that song and in all sorts of places is that just one strum per chord can be really gorgeous. And in fact, switching back and forth between various amounts of strumming can be great, right? Adonai, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. So you can go back and forth, and you can even write, Adonai, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried, right? And that's a much more aggressive, much faster kind of strum. And so moving back and forth between those and changing back and right, particularly on a song like this, which really only just has one sort of stanza that you go through over and over again, can really make a difference in terms of a song being boring and being engaging. Yeah, Linda.
What did you mean when you said something about the G, pulling out the G or suspending the G?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know what you meant.
I've forgotten all my buttons. I'm not instinctual. It takes me a second to hit all of them. Okay, so you've got... So our regular G's over here, right? Above me, above my head. But
Yeah.
then over there, well, over there.
Oh, so you just mean bring those in?
Yeah, I mean, when you come to those G's, try playing with those suspensions, right? And so that it goes like this. And that's, I don't know if it's helpful at all, or maybe it's just too many things to look at once, but that's why I've been doing the close-up of my fretting hand, is I felt like it might be helpful both to see the chords and to see how I transition between them and the little things that I add in. One thing to do if you're having trouble switching between any of the chords is go back and watch a video and look at my hand motion and what happens when I switch between two chords, right? So look when I go from G to C, how it's really just that, right? It's a two-step process, down, off, down, off, whatever it is, right? If I'm going to from the F to the 7, look at how that process works. So that's another way to do it if you're having trouble switching between these chords. I would also say it's a real skill that is worth developing, to be able to read someone's left hand, to be able to look and know that's an F, know that's a G, C, D minor, G minor, right? To get to the point where you can look at my hand and tell me what chord it is a really important skill. Because particularly in jam sessions, it's really important, useful, etc., to be able to look at someone else's hand and know what chord they're playing. And then, if you've got a little bit of music theory and you can do 1, 4, 5 and all that kind of stuff, then you can build off of that. But regardless, being able to read someone's hand is important, which is why I'm throwing that there. Okay, any other questions, any other thoughts, anything? Okay, until next week. We'll be back with all the songs for Shabbat Kulanu, and